My whole life, I found myself navigating a world that felt both strange and yet familiar. Now, in this dimly lit courtroom, I stand on trial for a series of heinous murders that I staunchly deny committing. My name is John Anderson, and anxiety courses through me as I try to hold steady under the weight of the prosecutor's scrutinizing gaze. The district attorney, Amelia Sinclair, approaches the stand, her eyes locked onto me with unyielding intensity. Her words carry the weight of authority as she addresses the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here to unearth the truth behind these brutal crimes. The evidence laid before you points to the accused, John Anderson, as the malevolent force behind them. We will reveal the darkness that festers within him. Mr. Anderson is faced with accusations of 12 counts of murder. Her voice resonates with conviction. Can you, Mr. Anderson, confirm your identity and your age? I met her gaze, my voice steady as I responded. Yes, I'm John Anderson, and I am 27 years old. Miss Sinclair's expression remained neutral as she continued. You've been accused of 12 counts of murder, Mr. Anderson. Can you tell the court where you were on the nights of the murders? Inhaling deeply, my heart pounds in my chest. Miss Sinclair, I want to be clear that I am not responsible for those murders. I was not present at any of those locations on those nights. A murmur of skepticism sweeps through the courtroom, yet I hold my ground with an unwavering gaze. Miss Sinclair's stern demeanor remains unshaken as she persists. You claim not to have been present at the crime scenes, Mr. Anderson, she said, her voice measured. Yet your DNA and fingerprints were found at each one. How do you explain that? Suppressing the anxiety that threatens to break through, I maintain a steady voice. I can't explain the physical evidence, but I swear to you that I didn't commit those murders. My DNA and fingerprints may be there, but I was not involved. A few members of the jury exchanged doubtful glances, and I could feel the weight of their skepticism. Miss Sinclair's next words were pointed, her eyes never leaving mine. Mr. Anderson, it's difficult to believe that your DNA and fingerprints would be present at all 12 crime scenes purely by coincidence, Miss Sinclair stated, her tone unwavering. These are not minor details that can be brushed aside. Your presence, backed by tangible evidence, suggests a direct connection to the murders. How can you explain this compelling correlation? The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, a challenge that I knew I had to address convincingly. The courtroom's collective gaze fixed upon me, awaiting my response, as the pressure intensified. Miss Sinclair, I know how it looks, I replied, my voice tinged with a mix of frustration and desperation. But I assure you, I had no knowledge of these crimes, nor did I intentionally leave my DNA and fingerprints at those scenes. I can't explain the evidence, but I swear I'm not responsible for these murders. There must be a mistake. I could feel the weight of the courtroom's skepticism pressing down on me, and I fought to maintain my composure. My heart raced as I met Miss Sinclair's unyielding gaze, hoping against hope that my words would be enough to sow a seed of doubt in the minds of the jurors. As witnesses took the stand, the courtroom listened intently to their testimonies, each piece of evidence building a damning case against me. Murmurs of disbelief circulated among the spectators, their judgment etched on their faces. One witness described a murder most foul. She described the scene as finding her husband's entrail out of his body, and his head was found in their garbage can with his tongue missing. Another witness found his girlfriend's body burnt so badly in the woods that they needed dental records to identify her. I struggled to maintain my composure as witness after witness gave their testimonies. During cross-examination, my lawyer, Benjamin Reynolds, began to raise questions that seemed unrelated to the case. "Officer Davis," he began, addressing the lead investigator, "can you confirm that the accused, John Anderson, was adopted at a young age?" The investigator seemed taken aback by the question, but eventually answered, "Yes, that's correct." Benjamin pressed on. "And is it true that his adoption records showed discrepancies? Records that suggest hidden truths about his origins?" The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the investigator hesitated before responding. "Yes, there were some irregularities." As the trial continued, my lawyer presented evidence that began to chip away at the prosecution's narrative. He introduced medical records, documents, and expert testimonies that hinted at a more complex story. The judge allowed the line of questioning, and the courtroom held its breath as my lawyer revealed information that no one, not even myself, had known. The revelation hit me like a sledgehammer. I was not who I thought I was. Benjamin stood up, his face a mask of determination. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we acknowledge the gravity of the accusations. However, we intend to shed light on factors that have remained hidden until now. Factors that could reshape our understanding of my client's actions. The defense calls Dr. Cunningham to the stand." Dr. Cunningham is a renowned researcher whose team is deeply involved in researching the revival of the deceased. But what does he have to do with my case? As I stood accused of heinous crimes, Benjamin stepped forward to question the doctor. "Dr. Cunningham," Benjamin's voice was steady, "were you involved in creating the clone, John Anderson?" Briefly, Dr. Cunningham's gaze meets mine before he answers. "Yes, that's correct." Benjamin's tone was measured, as if he was unraveling a complex puzzle. "And can you explain the motives behind creating this clone?" Guardedly, Dr. Cunningham responds, "We aim to study the intricate interplay between genetic makeup and environmental influences on behavior." Nodding, Benjamin delves deeper. "So, in the pursuit of knowledge, you utilize genetic material from Richard Harlow, a known serial killer?" Dr. Cunningham shifted slightly in his seat. "Yes, that was the source of the genetic material. Mr. Harlow consented to donate his body to science just before his execution." Benjamin's gaze held an air of curiosity. "Were you and your colleagues conscious of the implications of using such material?" Carefully, Dr. Cunningham answers, "We weighed the potential insights against the ethical concerns." Benjamin furrowed his brow. "What board would fund such research?" Dr. Cunningham's expression darkens. "None other than Morningstar Inc. When the traditional channels failed, bureaucracies and ethic boards and the like, Morningstar Inc. funded our research." Gasps rippled through the courtroom, and I meet the scientist's gaze, realization dawning. Puzzle pieces align, revealing a shocking image, and tension hangs thick in the air. Benjamin's tone became pointed. "Morningstar Inc., the organization funding your research. Were they aware of the genetic material origins?" After a hesitation, Dr. Cunningham nods. "Yes, they were informed." Thoughtful, Benjamin continues. "Were they driven by curiosity, or were there other motives?" Dr. Cunningham appeared contemplative. "They were intrigued by the scientific possibilities, but also by the ethical dilemmas it raised." Benjamin's tone turned sympathetic. Ethical dilemmas that you and your colleagues were no doubt aware of. And yet, you proceeded with the experiment. Dr. Cunningham's voice held a hint of remorse. We believed we could gain valuable insights into human behaviors. Compassionate. Benjamin's gaze meets Dr. Cunningham's. Insights that, in hindsight, led to a tragic sequence of events. Events that your experiment's creation, John Anderson's, stands accused of. Dr. Cunningham's expression was burdened with responsibility. It's a consequence we didn't fully anticipate. Benjamin's voice softened. Thank you, Dr. Cunningham. Your testimony sheds light on the complexities of your experiment's intentions and the unforeseen consequences it has unleashed. I couldn't believe it. I was a clone. I was created from the genetic material of another person. A man I had never known. The shock and the confusion coursed through me, leaving me reeling as the truth unfolded in the midst of the trial. My lawyer presented evidence that exposed the hidden hand of the enigmatic Morningstar Inc., an organization with its own motives for creating me. The courtroom buzzed with whispered conversations as the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. The judge ordered the release of all documentation relating to the experiment that created me. As the trial reached its climax, my lawyer addressed the jury with passion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not just dealing with a simple case of guilt or innocence. We are dealing with a young man whose identity has been manipulated from the very beginning. A life shaped by forces beyond his control. The jury filed out to deliberate, leaving me in a state of shock and reflection. The trial had revealed not only the horrors of my actions, but also the twisted origins of my existence. The truth had come to light in the most unexpected way. And as I awaited the jury's verdict, I knew that my life would never be the same.